Hi, I'm Greg Meyer. I'm the product manager for Brake Lathes here at Hunter Engineering. And today we're going to talk about basic operations for our bench lathe. We're going to do a couple of drums and a couple of rotors, show you how to set those up. We're not going to go into every possible combination. We want to give you a general overview of how the machine works. Before getting started, it's important to be concerned about safety. I've got my glasses on, I've got my gloves on, okay? We want to make sure we've read the operation instructions, as well as we're familiar with any safety placards that might be on the machine, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start off with a basic tour around the machine. First thing you'll notice here is a little chart that shows us how to select our spindle speed based on the diameter of the drum or the disc. This is important. We want to make sure we get a good surface finish, reduces our chances for chatter. This panel right here, if we open this up, this is how we actually go about adjusting the spindle speed. All I've got to do is move this belt. The motor is on a little pivot, so I just pull it back, and I can move it from one position to the other, and then just drop the weight, and we're ready to go. Now if I want to put it back to the other speed, just repeat, slide the belt over, and that's all there is to it. Over here, you'll find, this is how we go about removing the arbor. Okay, this nut here. If you need instructions on how to go about doing that, there's a sticker here on the top of the hood that shows you how to do that. Okay, right here we have the drum bar feed knob. You can feed the drum in or out. Here's your control panel, which we can turn the lathe on or off with this switch, or adjust the feed rate right here. And this right here is our drum bar crash warning. So if I turn this on and the drum bar is extended, that light's going to come on to warn me that we could have a crash. So just back the drum bar off, and that light will go. That light goes off. Here we have our cross-feed control knob. I can feed it in or out. I've got my micrometer disc, and I can loosen or tighten this to re-zero. We'll show you that later. We've got down here, we have our feed selection knob in the drum position, off and or disc, depending on what we're doing at the time. Here we have our cutting head pivot lock, which I can loosen with a wrench. Loosen it off, turn this top knob, and now I can pivot the cutting head to the drum position or back to the disc position, depending on what we're working on at the time. Here we have our cutting head or twin cutter assembly. Notice we have two dials. Each of these dials feeds the individual bits inward or outward. These are the locks for the given bits. So if we want to cut, we want to make sure that they're locked. If we want to move them in and out, we need to make sure that they're unlocked so that we can move them. So little screws here will actually release these tool holders if we need to adjust them in or out. And there's the bits and the actual where they're held in place with their individual screws. Here we have our drum bar. You can see I can feed this in or out. This screw right here holds the tool holder in place. If I wanted to remove that, I remove that screw. And you can see the bit held in place there. So if we need to change that, that's how we go about doing that with that little screw. Here we have the arbor. The arbor is going to hold our workpiece and allow us to turn it. Now above here we have our work lights. These can be moved around in any position that you desire, make it more convenient. We also have a pegboard in the back for storing adapters, as well as another pegboard underneath to do the same. Some have an optional drawer here that can also store additional accessories as well. This lathe is equipped with DigiCal. DigiCal is this digital display right here. It's very handy when we're measuring or cutting discs or drums. But every time we turn this lathe off, it's going to lose calibration. So we need to make sure we calibrate it every time we power the lathe up. So let's go through that procedure. So with this lathe comes this tool, okay? And basically this dimension right here is exactly 1 inch. So what I do is I hold this up against, there's a curved surface here, we're going to hold that up against the arbor. And I slide the 1 inch portion between the bits, and I'm going to just feed this bit in until it just pinches that cal tool. There we go. Then I reach underneath and press the cal button. Okay. When I've done that, you can see it's ready to cal, and I've got it just tightened on there, and I enter the dimension and it enters that as 1 inch. Okay. I can back this off a little bit. Now we're going to swing this down and we're going to calibrate the drum portion. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hold the cal tool up against the shaft again, but this way. And now you'll notice that there's this dimension right here is fixed between this flat right here and this surface right here. So I'm going to hold it like this and run my drum bar out. And we're going to just touch that inner surface. So I'll feed it out, get it pretty close, come in just a little bit, out a little more. Now the best way to do this is just to start wiggling this as I run this out. Just wiggling it slowly, and once I make contact, you'll feel it stop wiggling. And that's how I know that it's reached my dimension. And this is setting the diameter of the drum. There we go, I made contact. Now I come over here to the display, and you can see I'll hit the calibration button, or the accept button I should say, and now the DigiCal is calibrated and ready to go. Now let's talk about the DigiCal display and control here. So on the left side you'll notice there's 3 buttons. The top one switches between inches and millimeters. The center one is the cut and measurement button. So as I hit that, it'll switch between cut and measure. So cut is basically when I want to set my depth of cut. So I would get my bit in position, whatever that case may be, and this would obviously be the bit on the drum bar would be extended. I would make contact with the drum, bring it into my position, zero it out, and then add 4, 5,000, 7,000, whatever the case may be, and then go ahead and make my cut. Okay, and if I switch to measure, that's going to tell me the diameter of that rotor, so I can check for my max diameter, rotor diameter. Now, the other thing about this button to note is that it has a raised lip around it, so we can feel that when we flip the lathe down when we're in the rotor position. We'll show you that in just a second. The last button is calibrate, which we just showed you how to do. So now let's go ahead and pivot this into the rotor position, okay? So now we see the display for the rotors, and now we have 2 displays, and now I'm in the measure position. So what measure is showing me is the thickness of my rotor. So when I'm going to check for my min rotor thickness, all I have to do is dial this in or out, and verify that I can go ahead and make a cut. Now if I want to find my actual depth of cut, I switch it to the cut position. Like I said, I felt that with my finger because there's a ridge there. And what we would do is get our bits all set up. We'd make contact with the rotor till we were cutting continuously. We would zero these off, and then go ahead and add a few thousandths to each one, whatever the case may be, and go ahead and engage my feed and make the cut. That's how the DigiCal feature works.